Welcome to Zeph's house. Come in out of the dark and pull the door shut behind you. Tonight's tale is called The Milk Light. You've driven past a farm at night and seen one light still on in the barn and thought nothing of it. A farmer up late, a sick calf, a bulb somebody forgot to pull the chain on. That's what I thought too the first 40 years I lived across the road from the Hollis place. Then I learned what that light was for, and now I can't drive past a lit barn after dark without slowing down and counting the windows and feeling something in my chest ease when the count comes out right. The Hollis farm sat at the bottom of our road in Park County, Indiana, a dairy operation already going to seed by the time I was old enough to notice it. Old Merritt Hollis ran it alone after his boys grew up and went off to Indianapolis. 40 milk cows when I was a boy, down to 9 by the time I was grown, then to none. But Merritt kept the barn lit every night of his life. One bulb, back left corner, hung on a cord over what used to be the stalls. You could see it from our kitchen window, a little yellow square set down in all that black field, steady as a star that had come to ground. My mother told me the Hollises had always kept a light in that barn. Merritt's father before him, and his father before that, back to the ones who'd first cleared the ground. She said it the way you'd mention any old family habit, the way some folks leave a porch light burning for travelers or won't plant a garden till Good Friday. I didn't think to ask why a man with no cows left a barn lit. When you grow up next to a thing, you quit seeing it. It just becomes the shape of the world. I'll tell you the one time it near got asked. I was maybe 9, and a bunch of us boys had it in our heads to go down and spook ourselves in the Hollis barn one summer night, the way boys do. My father caught us at the ditch with our flashlights, and he did not yell, which is what scared me. He knelt down and he said, plain, "You leave Merritt's barn be after dark." Not because Merritt would mind, because that's his to keep and not yours to bother. And then he said a thing I didn't understand for 40 years. He said, "A light like that, you don't want to be the reason it's got to look to see who's out there." We went home. I never told the other boys I'd been glad of it. Merritt died the winter I was 51. His heart in his own kitchen, found 2 days after by the propane man. No family came down for it but the 2 grown sons, and they came to sell, not to grieve. I walked down the morning before the auction to stand in an empty man's yard the way you do when a neighbor's gone, and the younger boy, Dell, was out there loading a truck with a few things worth keeping. He looked older than his years, and he looked like he hadn't slept. He asked, would I want anything out of the barn before the auction folks came and picked it clean. He asked it looking at the barn and not at me, and he did not offer to walk out there with me. The barn smelled of nothing. That's the first wrong thing. And if you ever kept stock, you'll know why it stopped me in the doorway. A dairy barn holds its smell 50 years after the last cow is gone. Hay and hide and the sweet rot of manure worked so deep into the wood and the dirt that a hard rain brings it back up fresh. This barn smelled like cold air and wet stone, like a cellar, like the inside of a well. Somebody, sometime, had scrubbed 100 years of animal out of a building, and you cannot do that. But it had been done. And in the back left corner, right under where that one bulb hung, there was a low place worn into the concrete floor. A shallow bowl, maybe 3 feet across, the concrete gone smooth and slick as a creek stone at the bottom of it. I've seen where cattle stand in one spot and wear the floor. This wasn't that. This was one place, one shape, worn by one thing lying in it, lying in the light. For longer than concrete has been a thing men pour. Dell was in the doorway behind me. He would not come past the threshold, not one boot over it. I asked him what made the dip in the floor, and he said, "Quiet, don't stand in it." I'll be honest with you, I stepped back out of it before I'd finished hearing him. The way your hand comes off a hot stove before your head is told it to. My body knew a thing my mind was still catching up to. He told me then, fast, like a man spitting out something bitter. Said his daddy sat him down the day he turned 18, same as his own daddy had sat him down in that barn under that light, and gave him the rule of the farm. The light does not go out. You keep a spare bulb in the fixture and 2 more on the shelf. You keep the power paid ahead, and if a storm takes the line down, you light a lantern off the shelf and you carry it out and you sit with it in that corner till the sun comes up. That was the whole inheritance, not the acres, not the herd, the light. I asked him why, of course, any man would. He said his daddy only ever gave him the one reason, the same words his granddad gave, and he said them to me the way you hand somebody a live wire. It sleeps as long as it's lit. The cows were only ever to feed it back when it took more feeding, so it'd stay down there and stay content and stay asleep. When the cows got to be too much for one old man, he'd asked his daddy could he sell them off. And his daddy said, "You can sell the cows. You cannot ever sell the light." Now I want to be fair to it, the way I've had a long time to be fair. A boy will swallow whole any terror his father feeds him in a dark barn at 18. And a grieving, sleepless man, the day before strangers auction off the house he was raised in, that man will say things. I drove home telling myself Del Hollis was spooked and sorrowful, and I'd been fool enough to let him spook me too. I made myself a sandwich. I did the ordinary things a man does to put the day down. But I sat at my kitchen window that evening the way I had sat 10,000 evenings of my life. And the little yellow square at the bottom of the road was dark. The auction was the next morning, and I'll give you the plain facts because I chewed on them for years hunting a way out. The power company had not cut the account. I called and asked, later, embarrassed, and the fella told me the Hollis meter ran live another 11 days past that night before anybody thought to shut it off. And the bulb was not burned out. The auction crew found it whole, screwed it in, sold it with the fixture to a man from Rockville for $2. So the light could have been on. It simply was not. Somebody had reached up and pulled the chain. Del, I have to think, loading his truck in the last of the daylight, walking back through the barn one final time, and flipping off a light on his way out the way any man alive turns off a light when he leaves a room. Not out of spite, out of the deepest, oldest habit there is. He'd been told his whole life, and he turned it off anyway, because turning off a light is the most ordinary and thoughtless thing a person does, and grief makes us all thoughtless. I did not sleep. I want to be careful about the order of what happened, because the order is the whole of it. I did not hear a sound and get up and go to the window. I was already at the window. I'd been sitting there since dark, watching that black square where the light should have been, the way you'd watch a hole in a smile. And that is when I heard it. Across a 1/4 mile of open field, through my own shut kitchen window, I heard something in the Hollis barn take a breath. One long, slow, wet pull of air, and it had a size to it, the size of the whole building, the whole barn breathing in through itself. It was the sound a thing makes waking that has not had to wake in 100 years because someone was always kind enough, generation on generation, to keep it sleeping. Then the smell reached me. That cellar smell, that scrubbed well smell out of the barn, come across a 1/4 mile of July corn on no wind at all, cold, through the glass. And then the corn itself began to move. Not with a breeze, there wasn't one. The night was dead still. against the still, a line of it going down, row folding after row, coming up the long slope from the barn toward my road, unhurried, the way a wake spreads out slow behind a boat that has already gone by. I did the only thing that came to me. I ran out to my own pole barn, and I threw every switch I had, yard light, both shop lights, the drop bulb over the workbench, the porch. I lit my place up like a ball field at a Friday game. And I stood in the open doorway inside all that light, and I watched that line come up through the corn to the very edge of the road and stop. Right at the far edge of where my yard light reached into the field, it stopped at the light. Same as my father said, it stopped at the light. It stood out there in the dark, past the reach of my bulbs, the rest of that night. I never saw it. I couldn't tell you a shape. But I could feel the weight of it standing there, the way you feel a loaded truck idling close behind you before you ever turn to look. It was patient. That's the thing I carry. It was not angry, and it was not in a hurry. It had simply come up to see who had finally forgotten after all these years, and it found me lit up and awake, and it was willing to wait and see would I make the same mistake twice. When the sky went gray, it went back down, slow through the corn toward the dark barn, and every row it had folded stood back up behind it, whole and green, like nothing had ever walked there at all. They tore the Hollis barn down that fall. A man bought the ground for the deer hunting and put up a steel pole building for his tractor and his stands, right over where the old barn stood. He does not keep a light in it. I have never told him. Tell me what a man would even say. And I'll tell you two small things and let you do with them what you want. His dog will not go in that pole building after dark, sits at the door, and will not cross. And the deer he bought the ground to hunt will not bed down in that far corner of the field, though it's the best cover on the place. They'll walk the long way around it. Animals were always the first to know. I keep my own pole barn lit now. Every single night. My kids think their old man has gone foolish and frightened, burning the electric on an empty building, scared of the dark like a child. Maybe they're right. But my daughter asked me straight last Christmas why I do it, and I have never given her the true answer, so I'll give it to you here in the dark instead. It isn't that I'm afraid of the dark. It's that I finally learned what somebody, all those years, was keeping the light on to hold the dark back from. That's all for tonight. If this one stayed with you, leave a like and subscribe. There is a new strange tale every week. Sleep well, if you can.